Welcome to the LDN Radio Show, brought to you by the LDN Research Trust. I'm your host, Linda Elsiegood. I have an exciting lineup of guest speakers who are LDN experts in their field. We will be discussing low-dose Naltrexone and its many uses in autoimmune diseases, cancers, etc. Thank you for joining us. Today we're joined by Cheryl from Australia, who takes LDN for long COVID, which has resulted in fibromyalgia and chronic fatigue syndrome. Thank you for joining us today, Cheryl.
My pleasure. Thank you for having me.
So could you tell us your story? When did you get COVID?
I got COVID in August 2021. It gave me a severe COVID infection with double pneumonia, and it put me in hospital for a month. So that was 3 years ago. Mm-hmm. And when I arrived home from hospital a month later, that was exactly the timing when long COVID begins. But in those days, it was still pretty new, so nobody knew anything about it. And it's actually very common for long COVID to set in a month after having COVID. So as you mentioned, I've since been diagnosed with chronic fatigue syndrome /ME and fibromyalgia. So they're my worst symptoms.
Mm-hmm. And what treatment?
So would you like me to go through and...
Yes, I would. I'd like to know, when you were diagnosed, what treatment options you were given and what's happened from then to now.
Sure. No treatment options were offered. They simply didn't know what to do. I actually got into a long COVID clinic, and basically all they were doing was taking note of my symptoms. They had no idea how to treat it. So what happened with me with my symptoms was that I had pain going right through, especially through my upper body, including my arms and all of my joints. And I rated that pain at a 9 to 10 out of 10. So one sort of treatment option was to put me on a lot of gabapentin. So I was actually taking what they said was pretty much the maximum allowable of gabapentin, which was 2,400 milligrams, which is a huge amount. Some doctors don't allow you to go that high. But without that, it felt I was living with an axe in the middle of my back, especially. So that meant I couldn't stretch my arms out to even reach into a cupboard. It was pretty impossible. I've got a mobility scooter, very luckily. I got that a few months after I had COVID. But the thing was, when I would get to a set of lights, I couldn't even stretch my arms out to hit the walk button. It was so severe.
Wow.
So along with that, I also had severe joint pain from inflammation as well, and it was affecting every joint to the extent that I couldn't even walk a lot of the time because it didn't allow me to actually push off my feet to walk, because my ankles and my feet just didn't allow me. So I'd have to just sit there and wait for ages before I could actually walk again. Luckily, that doesn't happen anymore.
Mm-hmm. Well, thank goodness for that.
So as I yeah, absolutely. It was horrific. I was actually trying to get to a doctor's appointment one day, and I couldn't get there because I got stuck part way. I had to change trams, and I couldn't get up from the seat I was sitting in to walk a few feet to get up into the tram because my feet just wouldn't allow me. Mm. So then I did a lot of research myself. No doctor that I saw had heard of low-dose Naltrexone, but I started checking it out myself and decided that I wanted to give it a try. Luckily, I had a doctor that was very willing to listen to me, and he backed me and he gave me a prescription for it, thank goodness. So I found that as I gradually titrated up on the low-dose naltrexone, I was able to decrease the gabapentin slowly. The thing with gabapentin is you have to decrease it very slowly. It's a helpful drug, but it's a pretty awful one too. It can be very nasty to you if you go off it too quickly, and too quickly is dependent for different people. It can cause terrible side effects for you.
Mm-hmm.
So over the last few years that I've been on it, my pain has gradually decreased from 9 to 10 out of 10 to 1 to 2 out of 10.
Wow, that's amazing.
So it has, I know, it's totally changed my life. The other thing that's been very bad for me, go on, sorry.
It's okay. I was just going to ask, when you were on such a high dose of gabapentin, did you have any side effects from that?
Sure. A lot of drowsiness, which isn't terrific with already having fatigue. They were my main side effects, though, extra fatigue.
Mm-hmm.
But I always took it at night.
Okay. And how long were you on that before you started the LDN?
I would think at least a year.
Okay, so a fair length of time. Mm-hmm. And while you were on the gabapentin, what were your pain levels?
They were still up at least 8 to 9 out of 10. They didn't reduce much, but they got the edge off the pain.
Okay.
So the pain was extremely severe to have to be on that much of a dose and not to feel a whole lot better.
Mm-hmm.
But it got me to a level where I could cope. I couldn't do much, but I could just cope with that level of pain.
Mm-hmm.
Because it really was. It was really like somebody stuck an axe in the middle of my back.
Okay, so would you like to continue telling us your story?
Yeah, sure. So my fatigue was so bad that for 18 months I could only go out once a week to shop because of the fatigue. And the post-exertional malaise was so bad that for 48 hours after I would go out just to go to a supermarket, I'd then sleep for 24 hours pretty much straight. I would have to set an alarm so I would get up and eat, and then I would go straight back to sleep.
Mm-hmm.
So after the first 18 months, it's now reduced the fatigue to where I can get up and actually function. Before that, I was pretty much non-functional, and I take it now when I wake. For me, that works best, and it gives me a bit of energy, and then I could cope again. And it was a matter of not only the length of time that I was on low-dose naltrexone, but also, of course, getting to my sweet spot.
Mm-hmm.
So it was in combination that it meant I started to be able to really improve. So that would have been not feeling any terrific improvement for between 8 and 12 months. I also could only shower once a week. Mm-hmm. I'd still hand wash, obviously, but now I can go out every day, and the post-exertional malaise is almost non-existent. Mm-hmm. I always suggest to people that they look on low-dose naltrexone as a long-term thing and don't expect instant results. Because it did take a while with me, but it's definitely been worthwhile.
Exactly. I mean, a lot of people will expect at the end of taking it for the first month that they're going to, notice amazing results. Some people do, but yes. Some people, like yourself, yes. Need to take time and be patient, which is not always easy when you don't feel yes. very well, is it?
Exactly. And I see a lot of posts in LDN Facebook groups where people say, well, I took my first dose, when am I going to feel better? And in my brain I just think, yeah, maybe in 12 months. I always say to people, don't expect instant results, but stick with it because it's well and truly worth it. I mean, where would I be if I hadn't have stuck with it, you know?
Yes.
So the other, I also had really severe shortness of breath. It was very troubling. That's also reduced significantly since the LDN. Again, taking a while. I have got pretty bad swallowing issues, which have also improved greatly. Sometimes I really struggled to swallow medications, and luckily that hasn't happened in quite a few months. At night, sometimes it's like my throat spasms, and this has also reduced significantly in terms of severity and in the number of times that it happens. I was actually diagnosed with paralysed vocal cords with 95% vocal cord dysfunction through having a nasal endoscopy. But the combination of low-dose naltrexone and exercises taught to me by a speech pathologist has helped me enormously.
Oh, that's amazing.
Like, that's been a huge help. Yeah.
That's great.
And the headaches with concurrent pain in my eyes has stopped. Thank God, because that was really terrible. It was very severe. And I was lucky I only had fairly mild brain fog. I know a lot of people with severe long COVID can have terrible brain fog. I was lucky in that regard. And I wonder if a lot of this was because, in relative terms, I kind of got onto the low-dose naltrexone fairly early compared with some people. But I really believe that low-dose naltrexone seriously gave me back my life.
May I ask how old you are?
Yeah, well, I'm not a spring chicken anymore. But I don't want to say too much. I'm over 50.
I was going to say, has it affected your inability to work, or your ability to work even?
Absolutely. Yeah. I don't think I'd be able to work at all because, for a start, I still can't do a totally normal day. Like, I can't be relied on to do something like a 9-to-5 job. Because I might have a day where I just have to sleep in. I mean, that still happens, but there's a massive difference for me. It used to be that I could not get up before 3 o'clock in the afternoon. There was just nothing I could do about it. I would have to sleep till 3. If I actually woke up before then and actually managed to get up, I couldn't do anything. I would just sit there and stare at the TV or stare at my phone. I wasn't functioning at all. So there's no way you can commit to actually working when you're like that.
Exactly. And as you rightly said earlier, that people should look on it as a lifetime medication, because the chances are if you stopped, you would revert back to how you were. You know, it works while you're taking it.
Exactly. I know that there's no way I could consider going off it now, because I know that I still have times where I am in quite a lot of pain. So I know it's assisting with the pain, but not stopping it.
Well,
I mean, it definitely got me to the stage where I can totally function, which is fantastic, but it's still there. And the fatigue is still there. It's just that I can go through the fatigue, you know, and the fatigue's not anything like it used to be.
You did say at the beginning about inflammation, and you weren't offered any treatment options when you were diagnosed with long COVID. Did anybody mention to you about an inflammatory diet to reduce the inflammation in your body?
Yes, they did, but I found it far too difficult to try it because, for a start, I couldn't shop regularly. And luckily some people were bringing me food, so that was extremely helpful. And when people are being that great, you can't really specify what it is that you think you need.
Exactly.
Obviously.
Exactly. But have you tried it now?
No, I haven't.
It might be...
I did go on some anti-inflammatories, though, which I wouldn't recommend. I was on a very high dose, and what's happened to me with that was I had an endoscopy just last month or the month before, and I've got pretty severe gastritis, which the anti-inflammatories can be the cause of.
Yes. But I was just thinking, you said that, you know,
Yeah.
your fatigue and your pain. They're manageable. They allow you to function. But I'm thinking it might take it to another level if you were to adjust your diet. It seriously makes a difference, especially if you can manage to cut out gluten. It's not easy. I've done it myself, and nearly everything has gluten in it. But once you get used to knowing without having to keep checking which foods you can and can't eat, the benefits are so good.
Yeah.
You wouldn't want to go back to eating a normal diet, in my opinion. I might be wrong, but it might be something you want to try. It usually...
and I totally agree with you. I, in fact, haven't had any gluten for a few months now.
Okay. Mm-hmm.
But I didn't count that as totally going on an anti-inflammatory diet. So, yeah, I think that's a brilliant idea. Just go that bit further now and get rid of the rest of it.
Yes, and maybe get rid of dairy, because dairy can make a lot of people very fatigued.
Yeah, I actually don't have dairy either because I'm lactose intolerant.
Okay.
I'm lactose intolerant and fructose intolerant. Yeah.
It seems as though you've got a pretty good diet there anyway. So thank you very much for sharing your story with us today, Cheryl. I'm sure it will be very inspirational for other people that are struggling with long COVID and the effect.
I really hope so. I really want to give people hope that it can improve. I've seen people really suffering through it, and I know how it was for me when it was at its worst. And I just want to give people that hope that it's real, that you can feel a whole lot better and not be cured, in inverted commas.
Yeah. Okay. Well, thank you once again.
I appreciate you having me on. Thank you, Linda. Lovely to speak with you. Thank you.
Any questions or comments you may have, please email me, Linda, Linda, @ldnrt.org. I look forward to hearing from you. Thank you for joining us today. We really appreciated your company. Until next time, stay safe and keep well.